Hello and welcome. Irrespective of a win or loss, this week's analysis sources from a feeling of surprise. No, it's not the fact we were outscored by 44 in a second half. That's hardly surprising. Rather, it's a magnet move which leads me to a what if. Do Carlton win if Harry O'Farrell doesn't get injured? This is how I've come to that conclusion. With Carlton losing Charlie Curnow heading into the matchup to be replaced by Lewis Young, Voss opted to downsize the forward line knowing the conditions and looked to match Freo's forward line contingent of Tracy, Voss and Amiss with Wiedering, Young and O'Farrell. This left out Nick Haynes. Absolutely no one had it on their bingo card when Michael Voss decided to place a 33-year-old intercepting defender on the wing, which is where he predominantly played until O'Farrell went down. And while Michael Voss has been questioned for his coaching decisions this season, this was a move that for a game with these circumstances, it was a masterstroke. When O'Farrell went down, this experiment was cut short, and that was a shame. Today, in the brief stint we saw Haynes play wing, I'll be looking to break down why exactly this is in an easy to follow manner. Now, for much of the first half, Carlton dominated territory, dominated clearances, their pressure was sky high, and the game was played in a very straight line, linear way down the line. With Haynes in a more attacking position, you had a more reliable aerial presence up the ground. If the opposition tried to switch the play across, Haynes gave you a bit more of an insurance policy if he remained glued to his opponent, and the game didn't enable much run and carry, which is where his questionable ground level ability wasn't exploited. More importantly, it was a key move against some more able-bodied physical Freo wingers. This is what Carlton's first major sourced from. Fremantle looked to switch the play to the open side of the ground, and while the kick does accommodate O'Driscoll, Haynes' performance in affecting the marking attempt allows him to win the footy, and he makes the right decision to kick over handball to a man who will be under pressure. Whether or not Mackay meant to tap this to space, Moya's movement complements the drop of the ball exceptionally. The exact way to describe the shot at goal, which results in a conversion. Equally, if Fremantle got it into their forward 50 and Haynes was on the far side, he essentially became another tall defender, playing to his more natural strengths. Haynes actually was pretty clean with ball in hand, he broke a few tackles, disrupted the opposition play, and just generally had some really good contributions playing out of position. And it helped Carlton to advance the ball forward, allowing Carlton structurally to be sound in defence as they continued to win the territory game. While I described Haynes' kicking as questionable last week, and his intercept marking may not be as effective in a contest-heavy game if he's up at the contest, he did well for where he was stationed, and the situation presented as one where he'd be given respite for poor kicking, as opposed to trying to execute a kick that may be egregious whilst exiting back 50, one that manufactures poor execution, something he's not foreign to. Haynes had a great first quarter, so great that it forced Fremantle's hand. Fremantle had 4 forward 50 possessions in the entirety of the first quarter, and with that, Fremantle's forwards really struggled to get into the game. Jai Amiss was unsideable in the first half, partially to do with the 3-pronged defence the Blues had opted to run, and also their dominance around the contest. And so, to start the second quarter, Amiss got pushed up to the wing position. With the game being played in a linear fashion, if Amiss was on the far side, he continued to be unsighted, and if he went forward, he'd still have a defender on him, not to the same effect as if he was on a traditional winger. As Carlton continued to have territory on their side, this meant that now Carlton had more size up the line, as Jackson played as a midfielder beyond quarter time, instead of a chop-out roll forward, with the burden being released on youngster Harry O'Farrell who would now play on a smaller defender. Believe it or not, O'Farrell would still be goalless in his career if it wasn't for this scenario. Amiss was actually on the bench after his little wing stint didn't actually pan out, which led to this reality. Fremantle take the kick in, and you've got Voss well off the play, and Tracy and Jackson down the line, manned by Wietering and Pitnet respectively. Michael Frederick is picked up by Harry O'Farrell, who started the quarter at centre half forward, as opposed to much deeper, of course in response to the Amiss move. It allowed O'Farrell to do what he's specialised in, what got Scouts' attention, what Carlton ultimately drafted him for, as he's had 2 or more intercept marks in 5 of his 6 AFL games. It's a good kick for the lead up, but how many times did we see with the Hawk game last week, taller defenders peeling off the smaller defenders to intercept grab? That's what he does, and that's how he gets a shot at goal. Here's another example with a miss, this time on the ground, and this shows why the experiment was short-lived. Darcy gets a free kick in a ruck contest. A miss is visible here on the far side. Lewis Young is on Pat Voss a little bit deeper, and so Harry O'Farrell is up at the contest, with Josh Tracy needing to fend off 2, and then a smaller third defender in this aerial contest. A less than ideal situation for Freo's movement. After Carlton kick straight back to the opposition, you see the same matchup from the previous example reap a very similar outcome. It's Frederick on O'Farrell, and if it wasn't for Mark Pitnet invading the space, this is another intercept grab. As the second half unravelled, and so did the Blues, they really could have done with the Haynes role on the wing. More assistance as a weak side defender, there would be more stress on his ability to quell the opposition's ball movement as an interceptor up the ground, and also, there would be the potential to drag Fremantle players out of their primary roles as they seek more influence, as we saw with Amiss. Obviously, Carlton's fall off in midfield was an instrumental component in the loss, or should I say the choking of a lead, and maybe this dynamic with Haynes up the ground wouldn't work as the game opened up and Fremantle dominated, or demonstrated more assertion and control. But instead, as O'Farrell was no longer available, and Haynes moved back to his more traditional position, it became a bit more clear-cut for Fremantle with their matchups. It prohibited Carlton's ability to really manipulate the opposition, and those unique advantages they created no longer existed. Jaeger O'Meara had more inside midfield minutes in the second half, in response to Carlton's massive midfield first half. O'Meara's first half was wing-centric, so who are they playing there? Another question that will go unanswered, and we will never know the answer to. Maybe that would change the complexion of the game even more. Maybe if Haynes remained on a wing, O'Meara would remain on the wing as well, and Carlton's midfield doesn't fluctuate in performance. That we'll never know. Literally a minute after O'Farrell goes down, Will White, who was a part of the wing rotation, is on Michael Frederick, who's been pushed up the ground with a quiet first half. Haynes is now on a miss, taking the guise of a more traditional matchup. You've got a high up and under kick, go all swirly, and under the ball isn't a more reassuring aerial presence of Nick Haynes, it's Will White. No Blue makes contact with the ball. Carroll does have a tendency in his brief AFL career to clean up his own teammates, but I'd like to think a Haynes presence brings more assurance in how Carroll plays. Anyway, it goes over the back, Wietering rolls up to cover the loss, and Tracy is now open, running in favour of his strong kicking side. With how Haynes had been holding up early in this match, I'd like to say if he's playing on the wing still, this doesn't occur. And this just goes to show, the minute things became a little bit more vanilla and predictable, Fremantle started to get on top. I personally would have found this to be a fascinating watch in the second half. It's quite unfortunate that the footballing gods didn't allow a rare win in the Carlton magnet moving process to fully eventuate. But as far as successes go for the small time it was exhibited, given the conditions, and the way the game was played, I would say that Haynes moving to a wing was actually a fair success. Anyway, that'll do it for me. Thanks for tuning in yet again. What did you think about this magnet move? Did it work? Or were you not a fan? We'll be back next week for another game review as the season winds down and the quantity becomes fewer. But until then, stay safe, chat soon, and bye for now.